Hosted by 2D Music. Say it loud, say it proud. In-depth conversations. Hosted by 2D Music. Bang, bounce, sound, bounce, big sound.
Welcome to the In-Depth Conversations podcast. This is episode 13. I want to give a special shout out to our guest today. We got a special guest in the building for you, and he goes by the name of Fernando. Go ahead and let the people know how you doing, brother.
I'm doing good, man. I've been doing civil rights activism. We met at Family Court.
Yeah.
You asked for an interview, and I'm just going to try my best to, provide a good one, man.
Thank you so much for that. I appreciate it, bro. I just wanted to say, how's your day going?
So far, so good. I dropped off my son, not too long ago with his mom. We were talking about our current schedule because we temporarily just changed it. Well,
okay.
Now that he's older, he wants to basically go for the same schedule that, the same schedule that we have, which is we currently are temporarily going for a 1 week by 1 week schedule.
Okay.
And he wants to go like longer through the schedule. Actually make it kind of permanent going forward. And so I have to go talk to his mom about that. Other than that, just been chilling, reorganized my kitchen, like I said, to make it a podcast area.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
So this is your first podcast interview?
Yeah, this is my actual first podcast interview. I've never, ever had anybody necessarily interview me except for the news reporters, on occasion.
Okay, awesome. I'm honored to have you, bro. Definitely.
Yeah.
Let's go ahead and jump into the questions, bro. Let's talk about your upbringing. Where are you from, and where do you originate from?
I am from San Jose, California.
Okay,
I was
for sure.
born in San Jose. I was born at, I believe, Kaiser Permanente Hospital on the south side.
Oh, same. Yep.
Yeah. So I grew up all around San Jose. I first remember growing up at Hellier, like around Hellier. I went to Hellier Elementary School. Then we moved into the east side by East Strips, like a little bit where Meadow Fair is, like by Rigoletto.
Okay. Familiar.
And then I moved to the south side, over there by Martin Murphy. I went to Martin Murphy Middle School. Martin Murphy Middle School.
Nice.
And then I ended up moving to the the deeper south side of San Jose, which was Snell and Blossom Hill, I believe it was.
Okay.
Cottle and Santa Teresa. My bad. Cottle and Santa Teresa.
Okay.
And then I moved to the north side and moved back to the south side, Seven Trees area. And now I'm currently living in Mountain View, man.
Oh, okay. Oh, shit. So Mountain View is not too far from San Jose. For all the people that don't know, Mountain View is about, what is it, like 30, 40 minutes up north, driving with traffic?
Yeah, it's only like almost a city away, to be honest.
Okay, for sure, bro. So I want to go ahead and ask you the next question. How did you get involved with your content that you're making right now? Was it a certain event? Was it something that caught your attention that you felt like it was important to shed light on things that tend to get swept under the rug?
Well, it all depends on the question because it's almost like a two-part answer.
That's cool.
So in part where you found me in my life and the content that I produce are based off of two separate scenarios. So I originally started video vlogging and I originally started recording my everyday life because originally back in, I want to say 2019, I went through this like really big spiritual awakening.
Oh, wow.
It helped me be more in depth and more in tune with myself consciously and the world around me. And so what I did was like, I was unraveling my own thoughts and my own feelings and my own perception of the world. And I was documenting it. So I was expressing unfound feelings, deep sincerity, deep sympathy, empathy as well.
Wow.
Just consciously, and I was changing as a person.
Yeah.
As I was changing, I was actually documenting my transition. And so I was recording my whole personality changes, my thoughts and feelings and expressions because I became very like sentimental and very emotional. And I grew up gangbanging, right? So it was like a newfound direction for me. It was like almost like a full 360 over here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And so at the same time, I was kind of documenting my life because I do believe in God and I was seeing signs and synchronicities. And so that was in part why I was documenting my life, is to basically have proof and validation for myself.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really complicated, complex story, but that's where I originally like started video blogging. And so from there, um, after documenting my life and being like very happy go lucky, like I was so fucking flamboyant. And so like the only way I could describe it is like very beautiful and happy. And like even my family jokes about it, like how happy I was at that point in my time in my life because I was just so like immersed in happiness and joy, you know,
Yeah.
and that's where the two part comes into. So,
Yeah.
and we'll talk about that right now. But I ended up started meeting a bunch of like actors, rappers, you know, through my video vlogging. You know, people liked what I do. People liked my personality, and so eventually I ended up getting invited to go to LA to meet a bunch of movie actors, movie stars. You know, from like the local Mexican community out there in LA.
Oh, that's awesome.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so it was really cool, and that's I thought it was you know important to mention that like this is the direction it pushed me to and it helped me propel my media journey like to actually want to video blog and to actually want to do like podcasts even further. I
Yeah.
met this director. You know, she's friends of friends, but she basically directed this movie called Scam Scribe.
Okay.
And she asked me to be a background actor. And that's what propelled me to meet more of like an audience from LA and the movie industry, et cetera.
Wow.
So like now I know a whole bunch of actors and whatnot. Met Danny Trejo, you know, a whole bunch of people of influence
Legend.
from the Mexican community out in LA. And like they're like a lot of you know my big supporters. And I think that's why it's so important for me to like divulge because like they even though it was a short period of time, the influence that they made on me, like I don't know, it's helped me to imagine a better, you know, how do you say it? It's like a broader, better outcome in a broader world for myself
Okay.
instead of just you know thinking that there's only this world and that's it. I guess you know, like how do you say it? Like there's an outside world other than what I see it. You
Yeah.
know, the people who are going to uplift you is what I'm trying to explain. You know, it's not just like all doom and gloom.
Yeah.
You know, but on the counterpart to that, you know, how you met me,
Yeah.
somewhere in between that time, I became a civil rights activist.
Yes.
So in around like 2020, 2021, that's when the whole George Floyd thing was going on. I have my own personal experience in corruption with police.
Oh, damn.
And so, and it basically put me down a bad path. You know, my interaction with police formerly was like a big incident of corruption where the police, San Jose PD, specifically, they arrested me on fraudulent arrest. They basically came in retaliation to my house. They ended up going after my brother and they mistook me for my brother and they ended up beating the shit out of me.
What?
And
Oh my God,
this
bro.
was a long time ago when I was a youngster, man. And
Yeah.
so that's what kind of further propelled me into gangbanging, right? I ended up getting clicked up with a bunch of people while I was in juvenile hall. I already had people on the outside who I was friends with and associated with, but it hardened me more. You know, juvenile hall hardened me more, you know, and centered me to be more involved or around gangbanging.
Yeah.
And so I basically I had this like stick against the police. Like I had like, you know, this issue against them where I was like, you know, fuck the police. That
Fuck
was
the
my
police,
mindset, you know?
Yeah.
And so and so that's where it coincides with me explaining, you know, my transition of the spiritual awakening, where I was like, you know, not all police are bad. Like I can't just blame police; there are bad apples. You know, but all police are not bad. And if I keep on, how do you say, like feeling or projecting this alter ego of hating the police, I'm going to be, you know, just as bad as those police, I guess. You know, you want to feel positivity, you want to feel change. And if I just hate police and I continue gangbanging, like that's not the right path for anyone to go down. Anyways, transitioning out of this gangbanging thug mentality,
Yeah.
no matter the age, it was still stuck and hardened in me. You know, you can see people, you know, our day and age and their former gang members, but that ideology of gang affiliations is still embedded within them. Like
Wow.
they got to soul search and find themselves to completely, lose that type of ignorance. And
Right.
that's what I was doing. And at that time, I was like, I have to be some sort of change. And so that's when I got involved with a lot of political activism
Yeah.
during the George Floyd protests and during the Kids in Cages, where I was like, you know, if you want change, you have to be the change. You have to go out and change, you know?
Right.
And so I went out there on the forefront and I seen that police were beating the shit out of our fellow constituents. Especially the youth. The youth was out there, trying to get involved, and police were just tear gassing, batoning, just fucking up the youth. And I was like, nah, fuck this. Like, this isn't cool. Like, you guys won, as a police or law enforcement, you know, they killed someone. It might have been in a different state. It might have been in a different county, but someone still died, and people wanted to protest against it. And basically, our government tried to silence the masses, and we were one of those masses here in Santa Clara County and San Jose. When people protested, our government pushed back and started beating the shit out of us.
Wow.
And that's when I came out. I was like, "Fuck that!" And I hit the front line. And I started basically organizing and mobilizing and directing the youth, directing other individuals that were there. Like, I was taking the lead. I was there when we shut down the freeway of 101 with Florida in Spanish, Hood Squad.
I know who that is, bro. Small world.
Yeah.
I went to school
really
with Florida.
Now. Yeah. So she's really popular now, right?
Yeah.
But we were the ones who took the fucking freeway, bro. We took San Jose, we took San Francisco. There were like people who were just normal, ordinary, fellow constituents like me or you, who were like, hey, when there was something popping up, we showed up.
Yeah, real quick, correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember that shutdown you're talking about. It seems to me that the news media made you guys look like criminals, because there was a video of a guy with a hammer smashing people's windows on the highway. I don't know if that's
that most likely is true, because when I was there, but that wasn't the whole fundamental purpose of that.
Right,
So
sure.
like whoever that
wasn't proud of you guys.
I guarantee you they were probably an instigator, because the people that were involved, like, you had medics out there, there's like a group of people who were helping and aiding people who were getting hurt or tear gassed, like me myself. I was at first handing out water and baking soda to help neutralize the tear gas, just to keep the fight going. Yeah. And this was like in San Jose and in Morgan Hill.
Yeah, I remember about this. I saw it in the news, bro. I remember this vividly.
Yeah, and so we were all one big part of a contribution. Everybody there, I believe, was a big part of a big contribution, whether they knew each other or not. To think on the hammer guy, there were people who were trying to bang on windows, and that's when I stepped in. I was like, hey, like, a lot of these people support us and some people don't, but like, we can't just go around smashing their windows. And so that's when people were deliberately going to break windows to other people's cars there, or block off the whole road. Which eventually CHP came in and actually closed down the road. But I was like, let people bypass, because it's their right to freedom of travel. Just take a portion of the freeway. But we were letting people pass on the side, but they did try and take the whole freeway at first, and they were basically hitting cars. And it took people like me to regulate and be like, hey, stop hitting their cars, whether they support us or not, that's not the cause. But anyways, we took the freeway, CHP shut it down completely, and it was down for, I want to say, 2 hours. Wow. Maybe, about 2 hours. And they brought up a helicopter, a bunch of squad cars from other cities. It was pretty intense, bro.
Yeah, speaking of those riots, bro, sorry, there was a viral video of an Asian cop in riot gear saying "shut up, bitch" to the protesters. I forgot his name, something Jeremy Lin, I don't know if that was his name, but there was an Asian cop in riot gear just straight cussing at the protesters. And I don't know if he if he hit them or something, but I know there was a lot of controversy with the way the San Jose Police Department handled the protesters.
Yeah, they got sued by a lot of individuals, and it may not have really hit headlines, but they paid out a lot, especially to, I think you're talking about the same Asian officer, but he ended up shooting.
Oh yeah, that's what happened. Yes.
In the groins, and that guy ended up suing, and he actually won against the city $2 million.
Oh my god, bro!
He had permanent testicular damage to his testicles.
Oh, he got shot in the nuts.
Yeah, he got shot. I believe it was in the nuts
with the rubber bullets, right, or something.
Yeah, correct. And the officer just kept shooting random people, just boom, 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 out of nowhere.
That's just one example, right?
This is one example, and that's what I'm explaining. When I seen the officer had basically punched this woman, that's when I went out there. I understood that people were protesting and maybe they were getting upset. The police might have been pushing back, but I remember seeing that there was something on viral where an officer punched one of the females in the face, and she was younger.
Oh my goodness!
So that's kind of how I got involved. And I also have video where, like, when I first got involved, like, they were shooting us with rubber bullets, and I was standing next to a bunch of youth, and they just lit everybody up, including me. Like, I got hit too as well.
Oh,
And
you've been hit with tear gas.
yeah, with tear gas, rubber bullets, and stuff like. And that's what fueled me more to keep getting involved. Was like, you fucking just randomly struck a bunch of people with a bunch of rubber bullets and tear gas. And I think police were involved with instigating too. Like, I think the police were directly involved trying to get the protesters to riot or throw water bottles and etc. There were instigators there, and there were undercover police like everywhere trying to get others involved.
Wow, that's crazy to think, bro. And you think like these are everyday people, and you never know that they're undercover cops like instigating these things. Wow, crazy.
Yeah. It wasn't until after that a lot of people started getting together and like really organizing. You had groups upon groups. You had Batman of San Jose who was there with us.
I seen that. I seen that.
Yeah.
Bro. Wow.
And so that's where I originally met Batman. I was making like a little speech or a spew about like, don't become like the police, and Batman of San Jose kind of supported me. And ever since then, like, I've always tried to say hi or show support to Batman because he's a very logical sound person, I believe. But yeah, that's how I met Hero 10, Floyd in Spanish, Hood Squad, and a bunch of other people. And, you got other people, like me, that they're not big named or they don't get too involved. But I mean, there were definitely people out there who are just like us, just fellow constituents trying to make a difference.
Wow.
But that's how I originally got into political activism.
Wow.
And trying to make a difference in the community. And so, I wasn't how do you say, it wasn't like a full-time, decision. It was just,
it just happened.
That's something I believed in, and it just happened. And it kind of changed my perception of the world, and I started speaking out a lot more. But it wasn't until I ran into my situation with my son, where I ended up basically combating a corruption story. Like, basically, it happened in two cities. One was originally years ago when my son was a little child, and the courts basically attacked me. And that also helped harden me. Not like police or not like the system. And so what I'm saying is that coincides with this whole story where I am today, because all of this, negligence and corruption that I ran into over the years by police and the system, like, it helped fabricate me to the political activist that I am today. And so one instance was corruption years ago, but that corruption resurfaced recently in the last few years. With my son, because the police, CPS, the courts, and my son's school, under the jurisdiction of Sunnyvale School District, they failed. So Sunnyvale Police Department failed my son, and Sunnyvale School District failed my son. The CPS, Child Protective Services, they failed my son, and the family court, they failed my son. And it was deliberate civil conspiracy, and it was deliberate, like, complete malfeasance and negligence. Part of it was negligence, and after the fact, it turned into severe corruption and malfeasance, and civil conspiracy, where you had multiple agencies who were kind of conspiring against me and my child as individuals. And they may not have been working together on hand, but for the fact that they were given notice and and knowledge and awareness of their infractions or their retaliation and negligence, they are part co-conspirators for further helping or perpetrating this type of like corruption, because it was a really severe corruption case. My case with my son is probably one of the biggest corruption cases, of Santa Clara County, to be honest, because of how many agencies were involved and how deliberate the retaliation and negligence was. So a long time ago, I originally tried to get a restraining order against my son's mother's exes, because like they were like threatening us and whatever. Anyways, it's I don't want to go into that story because it's very long and
no,
detailed.
I understand. I can totally see where you're coming from, because I have a similar situation.
Yours actually relates because honestly, the courts were supposed to grant my restraining orders, and if they did, then there's a good strong possibility that my child and his siblings would never have been harmed to begin with. But the court never granted my restraining orders because my judge had made a mistake. Our judge was old. His name at the time was Joseph Huber.
Yeah.
I tried to get restraining orders for the stalking and for the threats that happened against two individuals.
Yeah.
And the judge originally stated that he has no control over the situation because they're a third party to my child. And he said that I would have to get the court orders in civil court. And so what I had done was I went to civil court to petition the restraining orders, which were temporarily granted.
Yeah.
When we came back to family court, my judge was very upset because getting a order signed for a child and an individual pertaining to these guys in civil court made the judge look completely negligent of his duties. And so the judge was upset and he was like, this is supposed to be in my court. Like, I can't do anything else because you put the jurisdiction in civil court over the child.
Yeah.
And he was like, I need to find out what happened or what was said because I can't do anything without the facts. And me and my attorney brought it up to him and were like, you told us to do exactly that and now you're upset about it. And he was like, I never said such thing. Anyways, so that happened and then skipped years. Years later, after like so much happened in court or whatever, my son's mother ends up getting back with one of the abusive guys that I tried to get a restraining order against, the one that was stalking us. She ended up basically picking back up a relationship and whatnot, and which is totally on whatever her own personal private behalf. But the thing is, the relationship put my child and her children at jeopardy. And the dude ended up assaulting my son in like 2021 by twisting his arm and throwing him in a room. And my son didn't understand what really happened. I just found out because he had a bruise on his wrist, and he came home, and I was like, "What happened?" And his wrist had hurt. He was really younger at the time. This was 2021. My son just turned 11 this week.
Yeah. Talking about your situation with your son's mom's other significant others.
Yeah, so my son got assaulted back in 2021, right?
I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I had to file a report about it. Like, I really didn't know what to do because I already knew the courts were against me because of their own negligence. After the whole issue with the former judiciary, the courts were just kind of like, or at least the judge was just attacking the entire court. And going through the court process is extremely strenuous. You kind of want to, sometimes you try and stay out of court as much as you can.
Right.
And so how my son's mother is she's very retaliatory. So I already knew if I were to call the police or file a report, the thing she's going to do immediately is retaliate. And she did. And my brother was the one who made it clear, like, look, dude, I understand it might be strenuous, even if, nothing comes from it. It's your job to file this report and do what you're supposed to do to protect your child and preserve his welfare. Because if you don't, if something happens later on, you fall victim to that. You fall blame to that. It's going to be your responsibility, as a parent that you were victim to some type of negligence, like, God forbid something severe happens to your child. But two, like, you are responsible, negligently if you don't act. And I was like, you're right, you're right. I filed the report. I called the police. I called CPS, and they all said I did the right thing.
Wow.
I told them what happened. My son basically told them what happened. He told the CPS agent what happened. He told the police what happened. I got it on video recording. And my thought process was like, my son never explained any of that to the police or CPS. And when all this got brought up, like, why would you not bring up the fact that my son was attacked by a dog? It wasn't after the fact that they made this excuse that my son was attacked by a dog, but he never had any marks of being attacked by a dog.
Right.
And anyways, I had to, take that as the excuse that had happened.
Yeah.
And I had to leave it as is. I didn't file any paperwork or anything like that because I really didn't have much information or evidence to go based off of.
Yeah.
But at least they knew at that point in time, like, hey, you guys got to be careful with my son. Anyways, So probably like I want to say a year later, I get a phone call by CPS, and they asked how I feel about my son being in the care and supervision of his mother.
Right.
And I told them my concerns that I was like, I tried to file a restraining order against A, B, C, and D. And this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and my son was assaulted in 2021, and your agents covered it up, and the police covered it up, as an excuse because your judges made negligent action.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, and at the time, like of the phone call, I literally was on bed rest because I got out of surgery for something called Kingsbach disease. So like I had my knee open and my wrist was cut open. So I was like, I was literally a day or two out of surgery when all this happened. And so I was like, if my son is like at risk, you guys need to tell me, so I need to know what to do. And she was like, no, nobody got hurt. Everything's fine. It was just a verbal, dispute, and they're doing a normal welfare check. And this was in, I believe, November of 2022.
Yeah.
And then I had nothing to go based off. A CPS investigator said, it was no harm. It was just a verbal dispute, and the children weren't there. And then a couple months later, and I believe February of 2023, I could be getting these wrong on the dates.
It's all good.
Yeah, I could be getting these wrong, but I think it was February, either March or February of 2023, and CPS comes to investigate me at my house, me and my son, and they were asking about the welfare of my child.
Yeah.
While in the custody and care and supervision of the mother, and I explained all my concerns all over again. And they asked my son if he's seen any abuse, if the mom's been hit, and anything. And then he went to his room and we talked privately, and I told her, he's lying to you. And she was like, how do you know? And I was like, he's my son. I'm supposed to know when he's lying.
Right.
Of course. He's lying to you. Right.
Yeah.
And she was like, what do you think he's lying about? I was like, I really don't know. I could talk to him and ask him, but I'm telling you right now, my son's lying to you.
Damn.
And I have a really good, close relationship with my son. So I knew he was lying.
Yeah.
And he was just scared. But my son had seen that the mother had been hit or they had been fighting. And majority of the time it was happening while they would fight in maybe the living room, and the kids were kept quiet in the room. And some of it he did remember, and some of it took him some time to remember.
Wow, bro. Yeah, no. Real quick, bro. I just want to let you know I have a very similar story. To be able to for a CPS worker to come and talk to your kid could put a lot of pressure on them, and it gives me. I get emotional talking about this because about the whole protecting your son from the mom's other spouse or whatever, bro. Like I've been there. I just want to let you know, as men, we got to protect your children at all costs, whether or not the CPS gets involved or not. We got to stand by our kids at all times, and I believe in that, and I truly feel what you're telling me. I've had full custody of my son since 2021. The son's mom had a kid with the person who was supposed to stay away from our son, so now their son is my son's half brother. It's a lot of shit, bro, and I just want to let you know I have full custody of my son to this day, and the mom's boyfriend is now he's in jail for false imprisonment of the mom and also harm to their child. So I prevented something that could have happened to our son, and that guy's in jail right now, and it doesn't make things right. The mom has supervised visits. It doesn't make things go away. So we have court again on the 17th, and like I feel what you're telling me, bro. I feel like I'm there with you. I hear what you're saying, bro, and we got to protect our children at all costs.
Yeah, and I'm glad that they took the precautions that they did. I'm pretty sure that the courts and probably CPS are at fault for what happened to the mother and to that other child.
Yeah.
I guarantee you, because I'm studying law now, and I had to fight through the same corruption. So I know, the moral ethics, or just ethics in general, like what is wrong and what is right in the process and procedures they're supposed to do. And, a lot of our law enforcement are at fault for a lot of what's going on within our communities, what's going on within our families. If they went, further out of their way to deliver true service, true public service, with actual, how do you say, sympathetic and conscious awareness for the situation, and approached it directly how I approach things, consciously, morally, ethically, a lot of things would be there would be a lot less problematic issues going on within our communities.
Right.
And a lot of the times, the judges and specifically CPS agents neglect the welfare and duties of their jobs and their decisions, and they just turn a blind eye.
Yeah.
So essentially, if they were really doing the right job, that guy should have never been able to get to the situation that the mother was in or that his child was in, because the child was hurt too. There should be more investigations on more people, directly like the child's mother, or that individual, depending on the situation. But I guarantee you there was negligence and corruption probably involved with your case.
Oh no, definitely, for sure.
You just probably haven't seen it yet, but on my case, I sure fucking have, dude. Like, my case was severe corruption.
Yeah, so I respect for what you do, bro. You don't let things just get swept under the rug. You speak on it, and totally respect what your movement is. I saw that you were there at the courthouse, and you were fighting for the other woman's rights to her to get her son back, and she got her son back. Can you speak a little bit on that?
Yeah, so in Santa Clara County, maybe individuals like within the agency might not know my name or know of me, but some of the superiors involved do, like our county supervisors and our council members, some attorneys and the judges. That high governance were removed from office because of my son's story.
Wow.
So, and that's why if I show up, it's a fucking problem.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like why I was there, and I didn't publicize anything because I wanted them to know it was more of a warning than it was of a protest. It wasn't really a rally. It was more of a message. Yeah. And that's what I was saying downstairs. Like, nobody could really hear me, even though I had a megaphone. It was more the political fear and impression that, hey, we got this guy who can't be controlled, who we obviously, the courts and CPS, have experience with, and he's not just some normal guy.
Yeah.
I mean, if I really wanted to, I could organize, mobilize, coordinate, and regulate. I've done it. The city knows that, and the county knows that.
Yeah.
Like, I've shut down goddamn freeways. That's what I, that's what I represent. Revolutionary.
Yeah.
And, so I want them to know my name. I want them to know I'm there. And it's not out of fear. It's out of, reconciliation and giving them the opportunity to make the right decisions. Because if they don't make the right decisions, someone's going to fall victim to it, like this story.
Yeah.
That girl. So what had happened was Baby Jackson, there's a baby named Baby Jackson in Santa Clara County.
Yeah.
And he basically died of strangulation and of molestation. I believe it was rape, a 2-year-old baby, and he died. And part of that was due to negligence that had happened on CPS agents, because the CPS agents who were involved with his investigation, they neglected to do a full, thorough background check, or actually, how do you say it? They neglected to recognize the background check, because when the background check was done, it popped up that the mother's care that they placed the child in, the Baby Jackson, the mother's care, she originally had a DUI and child endangerment entangled in one incident.
Right.
And that would have basically banned her from being a supervisor or a foster provider for that child. And so they ignored protocols. They ignored protocols. They ignored warning signs, and they just put the child wherever they see fit. Because if they actually put the child where the child was fit and sent to, which was into another state, they would lose those funds and resources that they have provided by fostering these children. So foster care is like a multi-million billion dollar corporation for every county and every state.
Yeah.
They get funds by keeping and fostering these children within the county. And so instead of sending this child out to another state, they kept the child here closer, because the child's dad had visitation rights of some sort, but the child, but he did, how do you say this? He didn't have custody rights, only supervised rights, but because of the extreme circumstances, they were supposed to send that child out of state to the other family who could provide actual fit welfare.
Yeah.
Anyways, the child ended up dead, and after the child ended up dead, CPS jumped the gun, and it wasn't only on Jackson's case. There was multiple cases. The second that the Baby Jackson died, or the very next day and thereafter, the county started pulling a bunch of children from different families who could have been at risk or hypothetically at risk. Um, which is somewhat good as a precaution, but not in the case that they were breaking the law.
Right.
So what had happened was the CPS agent that was directly involved with Baby Jackson's case was involved with Joanna and Baby Nathan's case.
The same one?
Yeah, the same one.
Oh,
the one
shit.
that when we met, the mother that was there trying to fight for her child, that same caseworker was involved with Baby Jackson's case.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that caseworker pulled several different children from several different homes and jumped the gun just to make it look like they were sufficiently doing their job.
Which is crucial because it's so not fair for them to do that because there's different situations all around, bro. Wow.
Yeah, it's called manipulation of the process, and it's called what is the other thing? It's like a civil conspiracy. They're two separate things. Manipulation is the process is you are abusing your authority as a public official with authority, and lying or manipulating the process to get something that you want. And then a civil conspiracy is where you're conspiring to do an illegal act, to get what you want.
Yeah.
So they were conspiring against the people, and they were manipulating the process by lying about those facts.
Yeah.
And so when they jumped the gun was the conspiracy. The manipulation was lying about the facts. And with Joanna and multiple families, they were lying about the facts, and they were basically abusing the process, which was abusing their authority, abusing CPS's authority, and abusing the court's authority. Because the court had to back them. After the fact, the court had to back them because if the court did not back them, it would not only make CPS look negligent, but it would make the whole system entirely look completely negligent.
Wow.
And and so they could not release the child after the fact, because if they did, it would be an admission of guilt. And that's why the mother had to follow through with the whole process of trial. Yeah. And they didn't understand this. I had to explain this to them. I was like, look, they already made a deal behind closed doors. I'm almost certain. The day after I met you, when I did the little protest, I'd explained to the mother, I said, I'm pretty sure they already made a deal. They're probably going to release your child after the trial. And she was like, how do you know this? I was like, because I have experience in this.
Yeah.
I was like, but don't worry about it. Just, keep your head down, and you be the parent waiting for the child. We'll do what we do in the background, which is I caused lots of noise. This woman that we were associated with, she was writing emails and talking to hella people. But I was more like just the background figure where I was the boogeyman in the background, I guess. But it coincides. They work hand in hand. I was the big boogeyman who protests and whatever, and the other lady was more of the legal, the legal redress of it. And so we were both kind of working together to make this happen. But I already knew that it was going to happen.
Yeah.
But that's why they never released the child, though. They requested a dismissal of the trial because there was no cause. CPS even made several fraudulent claims against the mother that were obviously unfounded. They attacked the mother's mental fitness, saying that she was unstable, and they want a mental health evaluation on the mother.
Damn.
And without actual cause to do it, it's illegal. They could do it and get away with it because of good cause, just for safety and protection of the child. But still, they had no good cause. But it was deliberate retaliation. It was deliberate railroading. They didn't know they made a mistake. The mother started fighting back against it because the child ended up hurt 2 different times while in the custody and care of CPS in 2 different homes. So there was 2 inflicted injuries upon the child. And when the mother had visitation through CPS, she noticed that there was inflicted injury on the child.
Yeah.
And she was like, how did my child get hurt? And so this was 2 injuries in 2 separate houses, and the child was moved in, I think, 10 different homes. And part of it was because problematic issues, and they tried to blame the problematic issues on the child, and the child was only 2. So she's like, dude, you guys are destroying my child and hurting my child more than my child was even harmed to begin with.
So messed up, bro.
It is really messed up. And so where the case originated from was the mother, Joanna, her child's father, basically struck her in the bathroom, I believe it was, out of nowhere, that they had an argument and he struck her in the bathroom and the child was in the room or in the living room, like away from the incident.
Yeah.
Joanna had reached out after the guy had left. Joanna had reached out to her therapist, and she was asking her confidential, confidant, her therapist, what should she do? And her therapist advised, well, you need to call the police. And this was the very next day. And she was like, you're right. Like, I'm going to call the police and do what I need to do. And she checked in with the police. She got a 5-day restraining order. And within those days, or she made a parenting plan as well with CPS, because CPS directly got involved after the police. So she had a parenting plan and she had a 5-day restraining order. And within those 5 days is when Jackson died.
Oh, no.
And a day after that is when the CPS agent pulled Jackson. So there wasn't any real cause or precaution to protect Jackson. It was just they fucked up with. I'm sorry, to protect Nathan. It was that they fucked up with Jackson, and so they had to basically kidnap Nathan. And the thing about that's funny, not funny. I'm sorry, I apologize. The thing about that is Nathan was in Stanislaus' jurisdiction in Modesto, California.
Yeah.
So she got the 5-day restraining order through the police, which is temporary, through Modesto. He did all the right precautions, talked to the police, talked to CPS, did the parenting plan, made sure this guy couldn't come around. He was kicked out that same day. But Santa Clara County didn't have jurisdiction at the time. And although they may had original jurisdiction to report the claim, they were supposed to transfer this out to Stanislaus County for further investigation. And so that's why CPS was so mad. Like, they were mad and took it out on the mother because the actual CPS agent who took the child didn't do a proper background to determine that the child wasn't even in their care, custody, and control of jurisdiction.
Yeah.
That's why they were more mad, is because now Joanna has such a big lawsuit because they weren't deliberately trying to protect the child. They were abusing their authority, manipulating the process, and basically conducting a civil conspiracy to make themselves look good, to make the actual former CPS agent, who's a former CPS agent, got involved. Her name was Tracy.
Yeah.
She helped us through this process. It wasn't until we both got involved around the same time directly where it was like we were gung ho. We showed up and we were ready to battle.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, so there was another court hearing, a trial date. There was another trial date that was actually about 2 weeks before that.
Yeah.
That's when me and Tracy were involved. And so when you actually met me, that's why the whole lobby and the whole, like, everybody was on a high alert, was because they knew we came for battle.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that tense the week before. But after that, when you had met, the whole floor was intense.
Yeah. So real quick, my bad, brother. So just basically to conclude that, is she ended up getting her son back, correct? And before you answer to that, the camera's gonna die. So go ahead and answer that and let the people know where we could find you at. And we definitely got to do a part 2 to this. It would be awesome to do it in person for the part 2.
So they set another trial date that was scheduled for this past week, and I don't know exactly what happened at the trial date. All I know is that the child was released on that trial date.
Wow.
It was on this past Friday, last week on Friday.
Yeah.
And they released the child on Friday. They had no real good cause. I'm just letting the mom do her thing. I did talk to her. I don't want to get too much information out of her. I just wanted her
to enjoy the time with her son.
Yeah, one thing at a time, right?
Yeah.
And she was just happy, man. Like, the whole aura, the whole personality, the character of the mother is it was a full 360.
Wow.
I was just happy to help, but
That's beautiful.
obviously it was a lot more than just the trial ending, because at that time, the courts, what they do is they railroad many people, man, and they get away with a lot of it. And they would rather our children go into the system rather than going back into our care. Because even if they were harmed in their care, at least it looks like they're sufficiently doing their job in their eyes.
Damn.
But that's obviously not the case, because baby Nathan was harmed twice in two different incidences in 2 different homes. Like, how do you explain all that?
Yeah. Yeah. So, my bad, brother. Go ahead and let the people know where they could find you at on Instagram, Facebook, at
Yeah, so on Facebook it's Fernando King, just Fernando King. And on Instagram it's Fernando King
Uh huh.
333. But that's where I'm prominently on
On
is
Instagram.
Instagram. Yeah.
I'll go ahead and put the link right here. And if there's one message you want to give to your followers, to anybody that's tuned into your content, what's that message to them? And go ahead and end it with the closing.
Um, can't think of a good message at the time, man. But
You can just keep it
don't stay,
simple.
don't stay, yeah, don't stay silent. Don't be afraid to speak out. If you don't use your rights, you lose your rights. And I've always been one to speak out and exercise my rights. And a lot of government officials don't like that, but they're starting to learn and be educated. And basically we're starting to community police the police.
Wow.
And you can make a difference, man. I mean, I sure did. Like, if I told you the rest of that part two story, you'd be like, damn, I forced the chief of police and a superintendent was to resign in the same week. We got rid of Andrea Flint from family court, like, or at least me. There's a lot that I've done. I forced the DA's office to open up backlog domestic violence cases, and nobody knows my name. Nobody knows my work. Nobody knows what I did. But you know what? I made a difference, and so can someone else. Anyone's story, your story, my story, their story matters. And this is how we community police the police. This is how we make a better community and a better tomorrow for our children. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's the best I could leave you with. But yeah, we should definitely circle back and reach out for part two because
yes, sir.
I'm gonna tell my story either way. I'm probably gonna make it into a docu-series and really try and get help for others, who have been through, our stories or in our shoes,
Yeah. Thank you for being a part of episode 13. That's the end of episode 13, bro. We're gonna wrap it up right now. Thank you for being Fernando King 333 on Instagram, Fernando King on Facebook. Go ahead and follow the homie. I'm gonna post the links right here. Thank you so much, bro. And I'll be tapping in with you pretty soon.
Appreciate it, man.
Thank you.